Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby. Back with you again for another week of Eagles football that we love to talk about each and every week. We talked about a couple days ago their really dominant win over the Packers, even though they gave up a ton of points. And now we're back again to talk about what's coming up on at the Linc. We've got the Eagles are going to be taking on probably one of their toughest matchups in the last several weeks. I think this is a 7-4 team that is coming off a tough loss to the Bengals and the Tennessee Titans. So, yeah, thank you for being with us here tonight. If you're watching us on our live stream on Facebook Live, YouTube, or Twitch, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're one of our regular podcast listeners on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts and others, thank you as well. If you have any comments during the show, you're more than welcome to add them, and we'll be able to answer anything that you like at this time. But this is all about Eagles Titans preview. It's going into this game. There is a comments weird over the you beat the Packers, which are not really having a good season. The media loves you again. I don't quite understand that reasoning because the Packers are not really a good team, but I guess it's maybe because the Packers beat the Cowboys. They're not playing really well, but for some reason, because we put up so many yards on the ground, the Eagles and are getting love from the media in this game, and that worries me going into any game, but into a big game like this where they're being overhyped. What is your take on kind of what's going on with this game leading up to it, the buzz around it?
I mean, at this point, because the Eagles are 10-0, 10-1, the bullseye starts, man. People want to constantly gauge every week. You're the only team, you're the hot topic. So, if you look at one channel, they'll say, birds are flying high, looking really good, like you said. And then you turn it to another channel, it's the winner of the Eagles going to lose again show. So when you combine those two, man, I think the Eagles have heard the worst from last year and have heard some of the best from this year. And I think the reason why they're not getting too high is because they remember how rough last year was. So just think overall they're staying level headed. I don't mind the hype. Our quarterback comes from the Hype Academy, Hype
Mm.
University. I mean, there is no bigger university to play for in the last probably 10 years than Alabama. It's probably like already playing for a professional team. The commitments and just everything that surrounds, Alabama football. So anyway, man, I think we've earned it. We've earned all this attention as well, too. So it's not like it's bad attention. It's good attention. We're winning. And we want to be recognized, and I don't mind it, man. I don't mind it. We just have to keep on winning. And you're right, man. We are definitely up against it this week.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing, like you're talking about the hype train and what Jalen's used to dealing with, it's gotten even bigger after performance of against the Packers because Jalen, set a record for rushing yards as a quarterback for the Eagles, set a franchise record. And I think people caught notice of that. They already noticed Jalen as being much improved. But when you put on a performance like that on prime time, when everybody's watching, people really start to notice. We got another NFC Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week to Jalen Hurts. This is like the 7th one this year that the Eagles have had, which is it's a great honor to be recognized for that. It shows you that your team's doing well.
Right.
But he, and so you're starting to see this buzz around him. And like I said, I think that the team, it doesn't affect it. I don't like it just from the standpoint. I don't like the team getting too wrapped up in their record. I think you're right, though. I think that they're tested to the point of Sirianni is going to keep them focused on one game at a time mentality. I thought in the Green Bay game they didn't look as intense as in other games, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And part of that is because of Nick Sirianni, and not Nick Sirianni, but of Jonathan Gannon's scheme. It really takes the players out of being able to just make key plays because they're in space so much. And I think that really hurts the defense. So going into this game, What do you think Gannon is gonna do? Because for me, against the Packers, trying to stop the run, they went to 5 down linemen and 2, so into like a 5-2. They bring Hassan Reddick as the third linebacker up, and they've been doing that a lot this year. But
Mhm,
against a heavy run team, do you think Gannon will shift more to a 4-3 or bring like Reed Blankenship down to have 8 men in the box with a 5-3? Because
mhm,
I tell you what, 5-2 I don't think is going to get it done because this is why. If they get any push from the offensive line to create any gap, going to find it. And then you've got our smaller linebackers trying to make a play at the second level. So even
mhm.
if they do make a play, Henry's getting 5 yards a game. That's what we've seen the Eagles run defense this year. They're not stopping it at the line of scrimmage. So if they try to fill those gaps with linebackers or safeties, and let Tannehill beat them on the outside. Stop worrying so much about the pass. I think the Eagles have a really good chance in this game. Do you think Gannon will do that though? Do you think he'll still go to that 5-2?
I think at this point we just have to trust Gannon to be himself. Um, that's the best we can do. What's that old Maya Angelou quote? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And it kind of just, I mean, unless this is his philosophy of football, I don't believe that when you're sitting here at 10-1, you're going to change your philosophy. I don't think anybody's going to do that because you don't know you're ugly. I mean, people have kind of told you, in passing, a couple of times, but the majority is praise. When you're 10-1 and you have had some great performances, but it seems like when we really need our defense the most, it doesn't. It holds up. Let me say that. Let me say that differently. Seems like when we absolutely need our defense, they show up. But in between that, it's a lot of madness and just play calling and schemes that just simply don't make any sense. And I started to think about our linebacking core, right? We have White, we have TJ, and we have Hassan. But Hassan is more of a edge rusher. He will drop back, but we really only have Kazir White and TJ Edwards there. I'm wondering if we change to anything, if we can bring the Kobe Dean in and be that other piece, if we're going to go to that 4-3. Right now, I don't understand why he isn't getting a lot of burn. That's still a really big mystery to me, considering that Reddick hasn't been used in the traditional linebacker role. So I think we should go to probably a 4-3 scheme. You really only have to worry about Traylon Burks on the squad. So we're just talking about scheme wise. Yeah, okay, worry about Traylon Burks. He's going to be in the slot. So if we throw another linebacker there, that will help us because we're hurting in that linebacker spot. Teams, it almost seems like past couple of weeks, whether it was against the Packers or against Washington, it's like when they needed the play, they just went right over the middle, somewhere in between our linebacking core. But that's something you pointed out in preseason about that middle area being showing improve, and that's the place we haven't improved at. So I think maybe if we can mix it up and throw in the Kobe Dean, but then it's like we're 10-1. Let's not do something, and then we're going to be blaming that as the reason why. So I think right now, man, you're 10-1. I think you go out as business as usual. I thought you brought in the personnel that you thought you needed because stopping the run is about controlling the gaps, right? So it doesn't matter what Gannon calls. If Fletch and Hargrave wasn't filling those gaps, it didn't work. So the reason why they brought in a new defensive tackle versus a new defensive coordinator is to see if they can actually fill the gaps. And in that first game with Sue and oh my goodness, the other guy we picked up,
Linval.
what's his name? Joseph. Joseph.
Linval Joseph. Yeah, Linval
Yeah,
Joseph. Yeah.
yeah. So with Sue and Joseph, they filled the gaps, and all of a sudden, voila, we had a whole different scheme. So a little bit long there, but yeah, man, I just think you got to trust Gannon to be Gannon. Just hope our guys fill those gaps, man, and control that run, and maybe see if we can get Henry going lateral. Because if he's going north and south, we're in big trouble, man. Big trouble.
Yeah, in teams that I've watched lately, because Henry has not broken 100 yards in the last 3 games, so he's due number one, which is concerning. And the Bengals, I think, I'm not sure the exact number. I think it was around 68 yards, something like that. It wasn't a lot.
Uh-huh.
The Bengals, that was their main key going into the game, was make Tannehill beat us. And it was a close game, but the Bengals ended up prevailing. And so for me, it's you're right. What they did was they forced Henry to go to the outside, and they clogged up the middle. I agree with you. I don't see Gannon doing that. It upsets me. It does, because it's a simple fix to bring Kazir White in more, bring Dean in. The good thing is we've got Jordan Davis hopefully playing Sunday. There's no guarantee. The practice window was opened. He said he's on track to play,
Hmm.
barring a setback. So he's practicing again, but we still got Sue, Joseph. So you've got the guys up front to be able to get a push on that offensive line and get to Henry quickly. But I think that's the game plan when you look at this team, because offensively, besides Tannehill, who's an adequate quarterback at best, let's be honest, he's adequate. He's not great. He's not horrible. And you've got him throwing to Woods and Traylon Burks, Robert Woods, Traylon Burks, and Nick Westbrook-Akine. That's not really anybody that you're going to be fearful of.
Hmm.
So why not? And then Austin Hooper at tight end. So it's like, why not take advantage of that and put some one-on-one schemes up there? You got the corners that can do it. You got Slay that can cover these guys. This isn't McLaurin.
Right.
He's covering out there. Traylon Burks is talented, but he's a young kid. He's somebody you could take advantage of. And so Bradbury, same. Now the problem is we're going to be down. Avonte Maddox again. He's not back yet. And now we've lost CJ Gardner Johnson. So Blankenship will probably start there. There was rumors about Malcolm Jenkins coming back, but then he came out and said, Saints still hold my rights. So I can't go anywhere until they release those. And so for what they would ask the Eagles aren't gonna do that. Plus, they can't really trade. They would have to outright release him. And the Saints, they're like, if you're gonna come back, you're gonna play for us. They haven't said
Mhm.
that publicly, but I think nobody wants to even broach it. So that's not gonna happen. So we got to deal with Blankenship and Kavon Wallace. I like, after seeing what Kavon did earlier, I think there was a reason why Blankenship came into the game. And I think that he will definitely get the start, and you'll see Kavon
Oh, yeah.
spell him. But I think Blankenship gives us the best chance to win. So
Yeah.
that is dangerous. But we're not going up against Aaron Rodgers again. We're going up against Tannehill. So I think that it's a luxury to be able to let them do some man coverage and let the middle be filled, and the priority should be stopping Henry. But I just don't know if that'll happen. I do know on the offensive side of the ball, we got a little bit of news. It is going to affect the Titans game, but Dallas Goedert is now out of his arm sling and eligible to return week 15 against Chicago. So that was some really good news on the offensive front. He says he feels really good. Hopefully everything turns out the way it's supposed to. So good for Dallas after the shoulder injury where we got yanked down by his face mask with no call. And so he's on track to return. But elsewhere on the other offensive side of the ball, we're not getting a lot from our tight ends. But this is a big game, in my opinion, for AJ Brown. And I don't think enough's been really talked about in the media on it, because I actually I really honestly don't know why. Because this is the team that really, they kind of didn't try to keep him, traded him away, focused on bringing in the youth and Traylon Burks in the draft.
Mhm.
and and so there's people that really resent AJ in Tennessee. Now, luckily, this isn't in Tennessee, so he doesn't have to hear any boos. But I
Right.
think I think AJ wants to have a big game. I think
Okay.
that should play it in the Eagles' favor.
I think, especially after last week, when you have the fumble, you coming off back-to-back fumbles, even though you scored the touchdown, a game-clinching touchdown. I think, yeah, man, AJ is definitely. I mean, he's already been getting enough touches a game, so he's had to just do more with the touches that he gets. Hopefully, he comes back this week super healthy. Um, I think it's going to be great to see like his old teammates and stuff like that because it's still a brotherhood. But I really do believe that if this game was in Nashville, then oh yeah, buddy, he would probably can't wait to have a really big game. I think he wants to have a great, good game. But I think as long as he has a solid game, I think, and gets the win, he'll be fine. But I think if he was in Tennessee, oh yeah, he'll be doing the Randy Moss, pulling the pants down, simulation moonshots, all of that. That's the difference, is what I'm saying. He's going to score against the
Right.
Eagles and just celebrate the Eagles. If he scores, they were in Nashville, he was going to have something to say to that crowd. They would have had a celebration. I mean, everything lined up for his at Nashville. I just think it's going to be a game that they just know they need to win against a really tough opponent, a playoff bound opponent, um, a run stopping opponent. But yeah, man, I think AJ is going to. I'm right there with you, man. I think AJ is definitely primed for this game.
Like you said, a run stop. Let's look at the matchup on paper. Here is what we've got. We've got on the left hand side of the screen, we've got offense versus defense. The Titans right now have the 29th ranked offense in the league. They're 29th in passing at 192 yards a game. They're 12th in rushing, and that's all due to Derrick Henry at 122 yards a game. Versus the Eagles defense, which is right now the second overall ranked defense in the league, only allowing 304 yards a game. They're fifth against the pass, which is hard to believe with Jonathan Gannon, but it is what it is. They give up 207 yards a game. They just give up high completion rates and a lot of time of possession. And what's really hurt the Eagles is that rushing defense. 18th now, they moved up a little bit, 120 yards a game. So that's something they got to watch. But I think that defensively, on paper, the edge goes to the Eagles. You're playing a passing team that doesn't pass very well against a good pass defense and an adequate rushing defense. You know they're going to try to run the ball, so it's up to Eagles to stop it. Defensively for the Titans, they are the 21st ranked defense, but they're the 31st ranked defense in against the pass. And I was looking at their team today, and it's like their corners are their defensive backs are Roger McCreary and Christian Fulton. Yeah, okay. So that tells you all you need to know. Now they do have Amani Hooker at safety, which is a pretty good safety. You've seen him; he likes to get involved, and Kevin Byard at the other safety.
Oh yeah, he's good.
But yeah, so you've got some decency there, but their corners aren't really going to scare you. That's why they're 31st in the league against the pass. So we should go into this game offensively with an offensive game plan of Jalen Hurts isn't going to run, Miles Sanders isn't going to run this week that much because you're facing the third ranked rushing defense in the league in Tennessee, only giving up 84 yards a game. So this is that kind of thing we were talking about with the Green Bay game where you change your tactics based on your opponent. Green Bay, it was all about the run because they're weak against the run. This game, they have to know that this team is susceptible to the pass. And this should be one of those games where you got Smith and Brown just running free. It should be that.
Yeah.
And so with our fourth ranked overall offense, we should be able to put up the ball and put up some decent numbers, at least to be able to maintain anything if Henry's putting up any touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be key is if we do give up a lot of yards on the ground, that the Eagles, when they have their drives, that they are moving the ball and scoring points. That's what's helped them out all year long. I mean, in these games where Gannon's given up leads, the Eagles have been a never say die team and have always been able to score points at will. The last couple of games, the last three games, if you will, let's go back to Washington. The Eagles have struggled with miscues. I think that's the best way to put it. We've had bad penalties, turnovers that have really turned games around, and it lost us the Washington game, and could have lost us the Indianapolis game. And it really they won. They dominated in spite of them in the Green Bay game, but there were miscues in that game as well. So I think if the Eagles can play a miscue-free game at the Linc and it's not prime time, you don't have the lights on you anymore. You're at home on a Sunday afternoon, clean all that stuff up. This is a game where offensively they can put up some points and try to hold the Titans off. But I don't know. What do you think when you look at the rankings as far as where the Eagles sit for this game?
I think we should just continue to do what we do well, man. If we can run the ball, we still average twice the amount of yards that they give up. So we're averaging 162. They give up like 86, right? But even with their passing scheme, the reason why I say that is this: They've played Green Bay, who has Aaron Rodgers. They've played Denver, who has Russell Wilson. Granted, not a good Russell Wilson. Oh, there you go. And then you have
Yep.
Kansas City, who has Patrick Mahomes. My point is, with the Packers and with the Chiefs, these are known throwers, and they didn't light it up on them. You see
Mm,
17 from Rodgers, overtime, from Mahomes. Obviously they went on the field goal. It looks like there. So even Mahomes only managed 2 touchdowns. Mahomes, MVP, the leading MVP candidate, only
good
managed
point.
2 touchdowns against this defense and that offense in the mind of Andy Reid, who's almost prepared for anything. So they're not a slouch, man. I just think we just need to continue to do what we're doing. And that's, if they're stopping the run, we'll pass. If they're stopping the pass, we'll run. And that's one of the things, that's one of the pluses the Eagles have this year, man. I don't know if you saw the interview with Tom Brady when he was talking about Jalen Hurts. And he was like, look, man, the reason why this team is playing to where they're playing is because Jalen Hurts is playing very, very, couple very well. And it was just saying, like, he's playing really well. And that's starting to be the theme. Like, man, you look around because you see a lot of games where the Eagles defense, you look back and you go, man, the Eagles should have lost that game. How did they? Damn, they kept scoring on offense. So no matter what, Jalen has been very annoying to opposing teams this year. Because as soon as you think you're up, here come this, here come this guy just taking his team right back down the field. So going against Green Bay, man, going against Kansas City, two teams that two quarterbacks, two smart quarterbacks that have known that can throw the ball, still struggle with this defense. 17 points apiece in regulation. So we have to kind of, manage our expectations and just make sure we come out with the dub. I don't care if it's 20-17.
Yeah, you're right. And then you look at last week, 20-16 against the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Now, granted, he didn't have Jamar Chase, but it's Joe Burrow, and he only put up 20 points against them. I think when you mention that and you look at their last 5 games, is that what they're doing is they're giving up 300 yards passing a game. They're not letting people get into the end zone. So they're playing a similar style to the Eagles that bend but don't break, because they're not giving up the big points. Because like you said, they've given up 20, 17, 10, 20, and then 10 to the Texans in the last 5 games. And that's not a lot of points.
No.
And that does worry me when
Oh,
I
yeah.
look at that. I mean, and then you take a team that plays defense well enough to hold teams scores low, and then you've got Henry on top of it, where they want to. We know what it's not a secret what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to come in and control the clock, keep Jalen Hurts off the field, keep our offense off the field, and then milk that clock with Henry and then score enough touchdowns to win. That's their game plan. And I think that's one of the reasons all these scores are relatively low scores, is because that's their game plan. They play time of possession ball. Looking at the Eagles' last 5 games, we talked about it. Packers was a win, had to come from behind at Indy, lost to the Commanders in that weird, crazy game. But then, blew out the Texans relatively easy, especially in the second half,
Yeah.
and then blew out the Steelers. One of the things about that when I watched the Monday night game between the Colts and the Steelers, I I it really, I don't know if it alarmed me. It surprised me that the Colts at first couldn't put up anything on the Steelers defense when we did so well, and they seemed to be able to run with Taylor on us early. It was just a weird game. I really expected the Colts to play better in that game, but it showed me that really, to me, and this is just, Matt Ryan is done. He's done ski. He didn't want to throw downfield. He didn't really want to throw downfield against the Eagles. All he wanted to do in that game was throw these little slant routes and throw these sideline passes. He barely would throw down to his receivers down the field. He just doesn't seem to have the confidence in those throws, and the Steelers were cutting all that off. And it kind of, when I watched it, it kind of made me mad at Gannon again. Because I'm like, we should have really destroyed the Colts when you look at the way the Steelers played defense against them by cutting off those. Now, the Colts did go on a run in the second half, but ended up, eventually the Steelers shut it down and ended up winning 24-17. But I was watching that game because we played both of these teams and beat both of those teams. But I was like, kind of like, man, our defensive scheme has got to be better. I know we're 10-1,
Yeah.
but we're just so loose on the field. So I'll say going into this game, as far as our predictions, I'm going to say it right now. I'm not so sure the Eagles win this one. I just
Mhm.
something in my gut is telling me that it's just not there for them with Gannon. Is that he's not going to stop the run, and it's going to be like Damian Pierce and the Texans, but worse because it's like with the when you look at the Packers game. Aaron Jones and Dillon are running the ball really well at the beginning of that game
Mhm.
because Gannon's so focused on stopping Rodgers and not
Right.
stopping the run. So then Gannon shifts, and then what ends up happening? They end up in this defensive no man's land where now Rodgers has the freedom to throw over the middle because now the Eagles have trying to adjust to stop the run. And so now you're playing their game. And I until this guy learns how to show some aggressiveness and come after quarterbacks and come after running backs and stop trying to sit back and wait for things to happen, until this coordinator learns that, I don't think the Eagles will beat a team as well as the Titans. Now, do I think the Eagles can win this game? Definitely. I think the Eagles are the most talented team probably in the league next to the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think that with Gannon is our own worst enemy. I
Mhm.
just I and watching him week after week, I know like with the Commanders game, I see this happening again with his scheme. And I it worries me going into this where we're playing a really tough running team because I don't think he's going to change like we said earlier. And I think it's going to hurt us. I think if he does what we said earlier, if he does focus on the run and force Tannehill to beat them, I think the Eagles can win it. I just don't think that's what Gannon's going to do. So, what are your feelings going into this game? Do you think the Eagles will eke out a close one? I know you're usually a lot more confident than I am in these things.
You know, man, for it to be a 4.5 point spread, right? The Eagles have been six, 6 plus 10, some ridiculous numbers all around the league. To be at home, 10-1, and the spread is just 4.5. That means this is going to be a ground out, pound out game. This is probably, if you take the 2.5 to 3 points that a team gets for being at home as a courtesy, this is looking like on the books in Vegas is a 1.5, 2 point game. So this is definitely going to be a grounded out game. I think this plays to our strength than more of a shoot it out game because we're more methodical. That's how we've been. We've shown we can score in a bunch of different ways, but we're more methodical how we go down the field. You know, so I think we can. Tennessee's a team that can always keep you in it as well. And I think we have more talent on the wide receiver side. So even if they keep us in it, and if they're grounding and pounding with Henry, we'll eventually get him up out of there. It's got to worry about Hilliard as well too. He scored the first touchdown against the Packers. I remember seeing it like, oh man. But anyway, I just think, man, I think our offense can still dictate the pace of this game with our run game. Until somebody stops us. I mean, you don't show up as the big dog and start changing what you do. You do what you do, and then if it doesn't work, then you change. But you don't. That's why you're the big dog because because you've been able to force your will onto the other team. Unless they got a guy that can overrun Mailata overnight, or Johnson overnight, Kelsey, Sayamalu, Dickerson, that they all five of these guys left the last game healthy, man. As long as these guys are healthy, I feel like the Eagles always have a chance. I really do. I think that's the heartbeat of our team. Of course, Jalen is the heart, but we
Mhm.
go as our line go because we can really, really at times really control a game just by running the ball. That's a privilege. That's an underrated privilege to have because your other teams hate it. You're just bleeding the clock, and they're just every two plays first down, first down, first down. That feels worse than the ball flying over your head because you're just getting beat up. I still think the Eagles have the capability of beating up the Titans. Um, and I think they will, man. I think go back earlier. I think it's going to be a 20-17 game, maybe 2014. I think the Eagles. Now, if they were in Tennessee, probably a little hostile environment. I think it could be a little closer, or it may even go the other way, like you think. Like man, Henry gets going, crowd gets going. Our defense can't really stop the run. Do they get down on themselves and just break? But I think no matter what, the Titans keep us in the game, no matter what, even if they do have a good day. I think the Eagles can come out, man, 20-17 on this one.
All right. Yeah. I mean, and it makes logical sense. I'm thinking maybe the other way, 20-17 Titans. And I hate to be that way, but I don't know why I feel that way. It's just I'm worried about the hype on the Eagles. I'm worried about Gannon. I want to see Gannon become a more aggressive coordinator. I don't think he will, and I think that's going to hurt us. But there's some interesting things you said there that I want to touch on. The line actually opened at 5.5. I think it was some places it was 6, but there was the public bet, according to Caesars Sportsbook, has been 82% on the Titans since it opened. And that's what's dropped that line
Mhm.
down to 4.5. So when you're putting money on a team, so there was a lot of people that had a lot of confidence the Titans covering 6.
Right.
Now that there are people still having confidence in getting 4.5,
And
and the
it's
Eagles
about the
not
spread.
being able
The
to.
Titans are
Yeah,
8-3 against the spread this year. The
yeah,
Eagles are 6-5. So the Eagles are at like 500. They're
yeah.
a coin flip against the spread, where the Titans have been 8-3. So that makes sense. If you're just a better in general, just off those numbers, you can just go, Titans have been covered. That doesn't mean you think the Titans are going to win, but you
Right.
definitely think they're going to cover.
Yeah, so I do think you're right. I think it's gonna be a close game in somewhere in that 20-17, one way or the other. It's gonna be probably decided by a field goal. And I hate those kind of games. That's all year long. I'd love to have like the Steelers game where we could just sit back in the fourth quarter and just go, this is nice. But those games don't happen very often. And to be honest, they don't happen very often in this league this year. It seems like there have been very few blowouts. I mean, the Minnesota Dallas game was one, but other than that, it seems like every game you watch this year has been really really close. So yeah, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be something that I'm gonna be really stressed out watching on Sunday. But I'm glad to be watching it on a Sunday afternoon than waiting all day and waiting all night for a night game. I was so glad they almost flexed the Eagles Giants to Sunday night because they had to get the Denver Broncos and Chiefs off the schedule, but they changed it, so don't have to worry about that anymore. And speaking of, this is a huge game for the Eagles at home at the Linc, because after this game they go on a 3-game road trip against the Giants, the Bears, and the Cowboys, respectively.
Mhm.
So you really want to win this game. You
Yeah.
don't want to come out on the losing side and then go on a 3-game road trip. So they have to know that. Before
Just
we go, yeah,
one
what's that?
point,
Yeah,
real
go
quick.
go for it. Go for it.
I just want to make a point because it just really dawned on me just what the Eagles have been dealing with this year when it comes to backs, right? They've played against Dalvin Cook, right? They played against Travis Etienne, who's having another hell of a year, who's having a hell of a year as a rookie. We went up against Zeke and Tony Pollard. Went against Najee Harris. We went up against the reigning, defending, rushing champion, Jonathan Taylor. We went against Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. We ran against a nice young rookie and Damian Pierce, who's having a hell of a rookie season, on track for possibly rookie of the year. And now we have King Henry himself. And then we have Saquon next week.
Yeah.
The Eagles have been playing against premier backs every single week. I'll just say, because everybody I named, with the exception of like Christian McCaffrey, us not playing the Niners, those are all the top backs in the league,
Right,
the
right.
absolute top backs in the league. So the Eagles need to get a lot of credit that they are giving up the run, but they've also played studs.
A
Yeah,
good point. That's a really, really good point. Before we go, I just wanted to show you something because it came today. So I was very excited with the holiday season. I got
uh,
my copy of Philly Special Christmas. Look at that. That's
that's
the
dope.
Charlie Brown versions of Jordan Mailata,
That's dope.
Jason Kelsey, and Lane Johnson. This thing is hilarious. And the tree topper is the underdog on the top of the tree. They've got a bunch of songs on it. It's Merry Christmas Baby, White Christmas, Blue Christmas, The Night Before Christmas, Christmas Baby, Please Come Home, Silent Night, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. What I loved about it was I took out the insert and I was seeing everybody who was involved. So the only ones singing on this album are Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, and Jordan Mailata. But they have Meryl Reese is a special appearance as
Uh,
the narrator, which is
uh,
great.
the
And
legend.
then there apparently have a peanut gallery of people which are probably singing backup and making noises or talking. I can't wait to listen to the album, but it's the Peanut Gallery is Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, AJ Brown, and Jalen Hurts.
Wow.
So it's and I got to show you the vinyl itself. It's gorgeous. Let me pull this up here. Yeah, it's a nice like green see-through vinyl.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful for Christmas.
Crazy.
I think there's copies available. I'm not doing a commercial, but I'm just saying if you're interested, it's the proceeds go to charity. I think it's for the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. So look that up. You can find it on the information on the Eagles website. But that being said,
hey Lee, the 85 Bears made an album, right?
Yeah, they did.
Did they have success?
Did they have success? That did actually. Yeah, that's true. They had. You're talking about on the field. They had massive success. So
right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like
so you're saying that there's a sign. There's
I'm not saying anything. Here. I'm just talking about the 85 Bears, and they made an album.
Yeah,
and they were a really good team.
They did. It's a good point. We gotta hope that's how this thing works out. So win, lose, or draw on Sunday, the Eagles keep moving on, and we'll still be here on the Where Eagles Dare podcast with Lee and Tubby. There it is, Sunday, Tennessee, Philadelphia at the Linc. And as far as we go, we'll be back here this weekend to cover our fantasy football draft. That date and time will be announced later. We got to get our schedules worked out, so we're just gonna hit and run like like a thief in the night. We'll just come, give our fantasy advice, and then roll back into the shadows. But we'll let you know. And if you want to know when we're going to go live, then you know what you got to do. You got to give us a follow on your favorite platform, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Just like us on all three, and you'll get notified on all three. Also, if you're a podcast listener and you want to listen to us every week, you know what to do. You go to Amazon Music, you go to Spotify, you go to Apple Podcasts, or anyone. A lot of people listen to us on Stitcher. I don't know how that works, but like half of our audience is on Stitcher. Go figure. But if you go to those and you like and subscribe us on there, you'll get a podcast delivered to your phone or your favorite device every single time we have a new episode. So if you want to email us, you can email us at our email address. It's lead.bird, that's byrd.eaglesdare@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the show and any suggestions that you have. Eagles, Titans, Derrick Henry coming to town. Not Santa Claus, Derrick Henry. So we better be ready. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Tubby for his final words of the evening.
And as always, thanks for tuning into the Where Eagles Dare podcast. Hit that notification bell so we go live. You can go live right with us. And yeah, man, come over here and get some of this positive energy over here with these Eagles, these 10-1 Eagles. 20-17 is going to be a tough one. We stop King Henry. I think we really control that game and start just forcing a ton of mistakes. 20-17. And with that said, man, as always, fly, Eagles, fly.
And go Birds. We'll see you later, guys. Have a great week.